at any given time. Then we come to this object here. This is the sculpture Kryptos. And Kryptos, for some reason, the government General Services Administration, the CIA, decided that based on my previous work with the sciences, now granted I was working with lodestones and invisible forces of nature, right? They just made this absurd quantum leap thinking I could work with the invisible forces of mankind, and so I was awarded the commission to do this for the CIA. For those of you who don't know about this, this has become something of infamous on the internet, and as recently as 2010, after much prodding, I gave a clue out in 2010, and the clue to the part that is, at this point, unsolved, starts with this question mark, and it goes around here and all the way around here. It has become one of the most famous unsolved codes of all time, from what I'm told. And so, when I released that clue, the clue is Berlin. So that's all I've given. I'll give one clue every 10 years. I figure I'm 68 years old. I'm good for maybe 1.5. So that's all they're going to get, and it'll probably end up dying with me what it actually says. So that's all good, well and good, because if you make an artwork, and the artwork doesn't have something in it that will hold your attention for more than 5 minutes, then there's no reason to make the artwork. And this goes for painting, sculpture, or whatever it is. And so I didn't know that this was going to hold the attention for 20 plus years and become something of a cult thing on the internet, but lo and behold, there it was. So anyway, on Kryptos, there is a chart on this side designed in 1588 by a French diplomat. It's called Vernier's tableau. The Vernier's tableau is able to crack this part and this part. Okay, not beyond here, but so far, these parts have been cracked, okay? Now, I am what I like to refer to myself as an anathemath, which means I am afraid of mathematics. I do not have math skills. I was taught physics, but only baby physics. I was taught math in summer school because I didn't pass math in high school. So basically, there are other ways to make codes rather than using algorithms, the bane of my existence. So I worked with a cryptographer from the CIA who was retired many years before and who just loved the idea of potentially stumping the CIA and the NSA in particular, since they're kind of enemies. So that have to work together. And so we worked together. He basically gave me a history of encoded systems. And I was then able to take those systems and use them any way I wanted, modify them so he couldn't figure out what it said, and then go about making my sculptures. So basically, I used something very simple, which are matrix codes for the parts that have been deciphered already. I'm not going to give you the clue to the final section, but this shows you more or less the way I did it. So basically, you have your plain text up here. It says, between subtle shading and the absence of light lies the nuance of illusion, okay? That's something that I wrote, and so when Kryptos is cracked, when the sections are cracked, you don't get something which is necessarily intelligible. I hope you get something that will go beyond that. I don't know where, I mean, it's up to you where it will take you. Maybe it will take you to solving the next part of Kryptos. I don't know, but it's retained its mystery to date. So this part has been cracked, and you can see the keyword is inserted below the plain text, palimpsest. I'm sure you all know what a palimpsest is, and that is inserted that way. You use Vernier's tableau by taking like the B in the first line and running over like in a mileage chart along the top of Vernier's tableau, and then you take the E down at the bottom and go across until you hit the letter that you want, just like the distance from Munich to Paris, right? You've got the E. So then you take that E and you put that E into a chart that goes a different direction. You flip the chart over, turn it upside down, and then you start writing down those lists that way. You turn it again, or you turn it backwards and shine a light on it. But whatever it takes, that's what you do. On this one in particular, on this coding chart, these coding charts were made by me, obviously by hand. Nothing digital involved here. This was 1988, before all of us had most machines and pass cards and all of those things, or pass codes. And coding was only thought about a lot, but not necessarily in everyone's life. And so Kryptos ran along on this parallel track with code. So it was interesting, though, that there was one sentence here, and it was transmitted underground. It was transmitted underground. Does anyone know about that? Does Langley know about that, right? So that's an interesting sentence. It's, again, another encoding chart using abscissa, and it became important. You take that chart and you flip it this way, and it turns into this chart, so that the final letter in a coding system might be the W up there, and so that would be the last word before the part that hasn't been cracked yet. So when I made that Kryptos piece, we didn't have water jet cutting. We didn't have robotic water jet cutting. So this was all cut with 24 assistants, 9 Bosch jigsaws, 900 saw blades, and 2.5 years of cutting is what it took to cut out Kryptos. So it was a significant, every letter had to be hand drilled, every letter had to be hand cut. Nothing virtual about this. This was serious hard work, and that's the only way it could be cut out at the time. Now, the thing about it is, this is the way it's cut today. So what took me 2.5 years, I have cut routinely now in 24 hours by this kind of machine using high-pressure water. This is a rather large boon to my existence, and I really appreciate it. So that's a significant event. Other things have happened to Kryptos. Most recently, it's like the Energizer Bunny of artworks, in that various things crop up on the internet or crop up in popular culture. Kryptos has been embraced by popular culture. Now, we all probably know this author, Dan Brown, right? So, when we also know probably the term open source, right? Well, in this case, it's more like forced open source, right? So we have Dan Brown, and this is the cover of the Da Vinci Code, and right along here, you can see the coordinates in part of my code. There's a west, northwest, and there are GPS coordinates in that book cover there, and then down here, if you take a mirror and read what's in here, they're drawn directly from the Kryptos sculpture. This is not a person I know, I've never met, no permission was given. It was just kind of borrowed. Again, sort of a forced open source. And in this factoid in the beginning of this book, which is the latest book called The Lost Symbol, these I only had to read because my lawyer required me to read them. I don't read these kinds of things, but nonetheless, it says a document was locked in the safe of the director of CIA. The document is still there today. Its cryptic text includes a reference to an ancient portal to underground, right? So all through not his most recent book, but the one prior to that, The Lost Symbol, there are references to Kryptos in the words and in the entire document, even to the extent where here we have the screen of Kryptos redacted and only parts of it taken out. And up here it says, in his book, it says, oh, by omitting the vast majority of the text, the server avoided copyright infringement. How about that? Right there on the page that's using my Kryptos screen. So enough of the sour grapes business, but it's a lesson to everyone who thinks about every artist who creates something, what's going to happen to it? Who's going to make $550 million off of part of their idea? You never know, and it's always potentially possible.